Hello and welcome to another edition of the King's Roundtable on Turnbuckle Bros. And we're back with another edition of the King's Roundtable on Turnbuckle Bros. I am your host, the World Series champion of the Rookie-Based Progression League, year 1977, Matt Huett, and with me, as always, is my bro, the Blue Chipper, the Day Tripper, the Lemay Ripper, the King of all things fantasy baseball, Steve Mutzu. And with us are our two awesome friends, Chris Baud from Baud, easy for me to say, Chris Baud from Deadspin.com, and our buddy David Avins. What is happening, everybody?
How's it going, Matt?
It's going pretty good. Everybody's real excited. How's it going?
Oops! Congrats on the World Series win.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It's my first ever World Series win. Super stoked about it. It was a good year for my team, the Gateway Archers. Managed well. I got to admit, I have applied the advice from the king himself, and it worked, as much as I hate to admit it. As much as I hate to step on that pump to blow his head up any bigger than it already is when it comes to this great game we play on Diamond Mind Online, of course. But I stayed the course. I didn't make any rash moves. I put the guys in the right spots. I didn't mess with lineups. I mean, it worked out really well. Stuck with the strategy and got my first ring. So I'm super stoked about it. But one thing I want to start off with today, and Steve, I'd be remiss not to mention this. I've actually been trying not to mention this at all on social media due to the super baseball fandom superstitions. I haven't made a post about the Cardinals in a long time, but what in the hell is going on right now? The Cardinals are currently on a 17-game win streak. They clinched the second wild card spot yesterday. Holy shit.
It's been unbelievable.
God. It's unbelievable.
Everybody's fielding good. Everybody's pitching good. It has actually been unbelievable.
It's crazy. And I was watching some post-game interviews yesterday, and Adam Wainwright, I think, said it best where he said, everybody's showing up with their hero card every day for the game. It's not just one guy doing it. It's everybody doing it. Everyone's producing. Everyone's hitting, making plays, making pitches. Adam Wainwright, I realized, had 17 wins. I mean, how did
this 40-year-old?
I know. How did this happen? You know, pitching some of the best ball of his career at 40 years old. It's unbelievable. I mean, I know, David and Baud, you guys aren't necessarily Cardinals fans, but Baud, man, what do you think about this Cardinals 17-game winning streak, man?
I would have sworn Wainwright was in the game already and retired for like 5 years.
Well, he's had a few seasons where he was injured. He was out.
Unfortunately, he's had some bad years, too.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a couple bad years. He was out for the whole 2011 year when they won the World Series, too.
I guess they kind of started the year slow, right? But no one really stepped up, so they just kind of took control of the wild card spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, they started off great. The year started off good, and then towards the middle, it just went straight.
When the outfielders got hurt, and when the outfield got healthy again, that's when everybody took off.
Yeah,
Bader is extremely important to that team.
Is there anybody playing at a level you've never seen them play at before, or is it just that they're all bringing their best
Tyler
game?
O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill is definitely playing.
Tyler O'Neill is going to be somebody that we're all talking about, I think, for years to come. Such a young guy starting to come into his own. He's great in the outfield. He's got good speed. He's hitting well. He just surpassed 30 homers the other day. He's hitting a lot. He's fast. He's on base a lot. He's great in the outfield. I mean, the speed and range alone that the Cardinals have in the outfield right now, I don't think really gets talked about enough. Just
Tyler O'Neill people don't realize he's one of the fastest guys in the league because he's all jacked. He looks like a He-Man figure, but
Yeah.
he's super fast.
I mean, with the outfield of Bader, Carlson, and O'Neill, I mean, they can cover some ground out there. I mean, they get the balls.
They have like the best defense in baseball, right? It's like them and maybe the Tampa.
They're built a lot like
Am I right?
a diamond mine team. Strong at the Gold Glovers on the corners, great range in center. They actually are built a lot like a diamond mine team.
They are currently losing their game 3-0 to the Brewers right now, but they've actually been behind in a lot of these games recently that they've come back to win. So maybe we'll get an update before the show is over and see where they're at on that. So let's get to the Diamond Mine game here. And there's been a huge breakthrough, a huge epiphany from our friend, the genius himself, Chris Baud, about this stolen base thing in the game. I was just made privy to this in the last couple of days. I've seen the stuff on the board. What happened with this? Because Chris figured something out, and there's actually one of the owners of the site, Charles, was like, oh, it kind of was an epiphany to him, man. Tell us about this.
Well, it was based on a wrong assumption I made. So, as we know in the game, stolen bases are based on ratings, the jump rating, and then which controls your ability to attempt to steal, and then the steal rating, which governs your ability to do it, right? So clearly Ricky Henderson would have the top rating in both, okay? And there was a post someone made about who was it? It was two guys. I think it's Michael Bourne and Michael Kadire, who have the same jump and steal ratings, and he said it's like weird, right? I said, well, there are ranges within each band of like excellent and very good, right? Of that control your stolen bases, and David actually chimed in right away and said, no, there aren't. And apparently IS has made that clear, right? That there aren't like mini bands within each band for the skills. So I said, but like, Ricky Henderson and Eddie Collins are rated the same for steal and jump, right? But there's no way. Like Henderson steals way more bases. This sparked many members of the community to investigate and weigh in and different theories. But it is like Henderson stealing about for full season like 15 bases more than Collins with the same ratings, same success rate too. So I guess Charles was intrigued enough that he went to the source to ask about it.
After I chimed in saying, hey, Charles, this really doesn't look right. The only other time he was caught out wrong was on something I discovered. And I warned him, hey, this might be another one of those times.
What was that one?
That was whether or not outfielders playing out of position make extra errors. They do, but only on throws. He thought they didn't, but I had data saying, this is just too much to be random chance. They do.
Okay. Like a left fielder unrated playing in center field? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Right fielder moving to left field? Throws worse?
They'll make a few extra throwing errors. Over the course of a season, they might make 3 or 4 throwing errors that they otherwise wouldn't.
Okay. But we should still put Bonds in right field, right?
It's about the same. If somebody is one level better at throw and you put him in right field, it's a wash.
Oh,
really? Man, I've been doing that all this time, thinking I was actually accomplishing something.
Yeah, you're giving Bonds more errors.
Yeah.
But you're letting him make more throws,
But anyway, so like Charles came back and reported, apparently forget the exact wording. It's like some base dealers are so prolific that they break the bank. They're exceeding what the normal attempts would be for an XX base dealer, right? So and there's like a million complicating factors, like the score, the type of hitter, all these type of things. But yes, I guess there's a handful of base dealers, Henderson included, that are attempting more steals than other guys rated XX.
X jump. The steal rating doesn't even play into that.
Okay.
So what kind of impact do you think this will have on your gameplay now, guys, just based off of us knowing that now? Steve, how about to start with you?
Probably none for me.
He always says that about everything.
Hey, it's probably not going to affect me. It's not going to affect me much, but I do think it's pretty awesome that he found it. I wish I would have done it. I don't see how I didn't notice it a long time ago. I don't see how none of us knew it. It's unbelievable that it took so long.
How about you, David?
I don't think it'll have a major effect, but it might have some. I haven't actually run the numbers. My gut feel before doing any math was that it probably, if you're not having Henderson at 1, but if you're having him more like 3, which is probably what I would do, it's probably less than 2 runs. That could be the difference whether I take him or not in some league, but not often.
Yeah, I mean, that's like 2 runs is probably, like 600, 700, whatever. If we do 3 runs is $1 million, right? Which is kind of roughly standard.
Roughly.
Yeah, so I say it all the time when people are like, it's only 2 runs, but 2 runs matters. So
yep.
I mean, those 2 runs could mean 2 games. I mean, theoretically they could.
I mean, and that 2 runs is on average. Like sometimes it's going to be 5 runs, right?
Right.
So yeah.
I don't know if it'll impact my game at all because I never really set anything. I keep stealing at 3 all the time, even if I have a little bit of speed on my team. It's just not something I really mess with because
you should probably tone it down a little so you have a better success rate.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that too, but at the same time, it's like it's not a part of my game, and so I don't really pay too much attention to it. But I'm also a subscriber to the fact I'm like, I don't like to run into outs. And I feel like I'm going to do that more if my, stolen base things are turned up. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah,
I really wish I knew whether Steve's assumption is right. Does toning it down increase your success rate? I don't know.
It definitely 100% for sure does. I know for sure it does.
How?
I haven't done any studies, but I know it does. I know it does. It definitely does.
The reason I actually was able to figure this out is because I have Henderson and Collins on different teams right now, and I'm like, I know, actually put Ricky on 4, all right, and against this one team he has Biz Mackey, and I'm watching the play-by-play. He's pitching out. I'm like, I put him at 5 for a series against this guy, but I'm like. And I had Collins at 3 all year. And Henderson is stealing twice as many, not twice, it's 50% more bases. It was something roughly the same amount of games, and Henderson had 66 attempts and Collins had 40 something like that. I'm like, this they can't be the same base runner. They just can't be. It's I'm not, if anything, I'm being more conservative with Henderson.
Right.
How do you guys think the sim decides if you're going to steal or not? I always think it's something like this. If you set it at 5, you're only running when you can make it 75% of the time. If you set it at 4, you're only running if you can make it at 70. I think it's something like that.
That's a reasonable hypothesis, but there are other things that setting might do, which is how much will succeeding help you and how much will failing hurt you, and that might be what determines it. And if you set it for 1, then it doesn't care so much how much failing hurts you, but it's still not looking at what your success rate chance is. There's just there's a plausible way that they could have it set it up both ways, and I don't have the data to tell the difference.
Chris brought up a good point. Is that something you guys do sometimes, depending on a series? Crank up, what do you call it?
Just the managerial settings.
Yeah, just crank it up for like a certain series. Like you're playing a team, you might jack up, stealing for one or hit and run on something. Is that something that you guys do per game, or is it something that you guys just kind of leave set for a whole year?
I leave it set for the regular season. I'll sometimes adjust it in the playoffs.
Same thing.
I adjust it a lot. Not all the time, but I'm at about the maximum number of teams where I can actually fiddle that much. But if it's like a big series and I know like the guy I'm playing has like whatever, like certain, he has a big catcher or like stuff like that, or if he has big base stealers, maybe I'll pitch out.
That makes sense.
I was getting carried away with it because like I would change my base running settings like if they had good outfielders, But
well, speaking of those managerial settings, that brings me to another topic that we want to talk about today, and that's pitching, selecting pitchers. And that reminds me of this topic because I do something, I don't know if you guys would think this is, we talked about it offline earlier, uncharacteristic or what or not. But I like to put my relievers, basically almost all of them are matchup guys, and they're almost all pull at one. And it works for me. Like say we got a guy, like you talked about a Dontrell Willis earlier, Baud, where he's got 400, his OPS against 400 for one hand and 900 for the other. If I had him, he would be only going in against whatever hand it was. Say the 400 was against right-handers. He'd be pull at one for reliever and pull at one for closer. So he's only facing those righties, and he's getting the hell right out of there when a lefty comes up. And I pretty much do that with all my relievers. You guys think that's a crazy idea?
I don't think it's crazy in SSG. I think in Classic, it probably clutters up your roster too much, and you're going to not have you're going to need some relievers who can pitch more innings than that.
Because, it could vary. Sometimes you find a guy who, throws 100 good innings like that. Sometimes you find a guy who only throws 20 or 60. In the
Classic, you just can't have as dominating guys. You can't have a guy with a 300 OPS against for left-handers when you can find them in every league in SSG. Right. These guys that dominate. That's why it works for you. It's because you have literally dominating pitchers.
So that's one of the problems with SSG. Whenever I talk about problems with SSG, Chris Tonzillo goes ballistic. There are problems with both sides, but one of the problems with SSG is you get guys who are already kind of good, and then they have a fluke season, which is entirely based on luck. My favorite example is Dan Gladden's rookie year. He hit 330. Dan Gladden was not a 330 hitter, but now you have to code him to be 330. And now on top of that, he can have great luck for those 300 plate appearances, and all of a sudden he's hitting close to 400. Now, if somebody's going to be hitting close to 400 for half a season, it shouldn't be Dan Gladden. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing.
But
these great numbers against righties or against great numbers against lefties. They weren't really that good against lefties or righties, but in a small sample they were. So that's how they're coded. And now they might be even better than that.
Yeah, but it's for people who want to play Stratomatic, essentially.
Yes,
it
has a lot of things going.
Look at this guy you never heard of. His amazing card. It's like Dusty Rhodes in 1950.
That's one of its purposes. Progression leagues is another, which are great.
It takes way more planning,
an interesting math challenge.
It's way more planning, and way more. It just takes more managing to manage an SSG than it does in Classic. Classic, you could really set it and forget it. I do it all the time. I got a team right now. I ain't seen it in days. I don't know what's going on with that thing. It's got everybody on it is iron because I didn't want to mess with it. You know what I mean? They just keep playing. I don't know what's going on. Willie Mays and Ron Santo and
the play,
Adrian
Gonzalez. Like the player pool always changes, and it's like infinite change.
But you have to worry about playing time. You have the splits are always harder to deal with, you know.
For sure.
You can do things like, I do this a lot. I used to do this against Circle Change, the Orioles. I call them the Orioles. If you ever hear me talk about the Orioles, it's always Circle Change because he's like my rival. And I would get a good player with like 150 at bats, somebody with 1,000 OPS or something. I only play against him.
You only play him against the top runners.
Yeah. He caught on to it. And he really screwed me over when I was right-handed because he got this guy. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
He 500K guy.
He destroyed you every time.
Righties, but he had like a 1,200 OPS against lefties. But I didn't have any lefties. The guy was like Sandy Koufax to me. That was horrible.
That was hilarious.
I wrote a great post about that.
You deserve that. Come on.
Yeah, I did deserve that. I told him I deserved it. I would have done it to him for sure.
That's awesome. So selecting pitching, I think all four of us probably have different philosophies and things that we look at for that, and some are probably easy. We know Steve doesn't care.
He doesn't care
about it. So, and Chris
has really not true. I care about my pitching as much as everybody else. I just don't want to spend any money on it. So
right, but
I still want good pitching.
And being Steve's progression league, Steve has spent quite a bit of money
on two pitchers
on pitching. So
I spent a lot of money on two pitchers
than I've ever seen him do. And so I even
sick of sitting in the playoffs and not having an ace. You know what I mean? The guy that pitched 3 games, you can't just throw anybody 3 games in SSG. They don't have the innings for it. You know, you need somebody. I'm sick of not having that. And this is something we could talk about. I got Bob Stanley's really good 150 inning pitch year, and I want to get 20 wins, 20 saves out of him this year. And I'm going to do everything I can to do it. I'm going to try, but I try every year. Huh?
Does he have a starter rating that year?
He's got a starter rating and an EX durability for a reliever rating. He's got everything I need, and he's a good pitcher too.
No more excuses.
He's everything I need. I just got to get it done. It's really hard, man. You have to do all kinds of stuff.
You better not play me
start him when you know you're in.
You better not play me live again like the Raleigh Fingers incident where you had to leave him in and you left him in for like 6 innings.
I lost that game because of that.
You lost that game and you left him in for 6 innings against me, and I finally won.
So I was like, if I just leave Raleigh Fingers in for these 3 innings here, I'll get a save. And I really need to get 20 wins and 20 saves, so I just left him in there and he got blown up and I lost.
Do you think I'm outside. Do you think it's too dark?
You kind of look like a vampire, and I think it's kind of cool. I was thinking that like 5 minutes ago.
There are 2 things you got to know for a pitcher. How many innings can you get out of them, and how well do they pitch? And for how many innings you can get in SSG, that's relatively easy. Unless they've got 290 real life innings, all you got to do is just multiply by 1.1, and that's how many innings you can get out of them. Might not be how many innings you want out of them. If you're not acing them, it might be less. But you figure out how many innings you're going to get. In Classic, that's a little more involved. But if you don't want to get into the weeds, you just look at their rating, and tie breaks go to the pitcher who lets on fewer runners, which you're going to do anyway, especially walks. And a real tie break is fewer strikeouts. Because you get a couple of more innings when you don't have walks and strikeouts, but especially you get more innings without base runners, along with their SP door rating.
So you pick the pitcher with less strikeouts?
If they're equally good otherwise, yes. If
I do exactly the opposite of that.
Strikeouts go into part of how good I think they are, and that'll lead me towards more strikeouts. But hey, if they're getting outs anyway, strikeout, other out, I don't really care that much.
Sometimes you want that strikeout, though.
Yeah, and sometimes you want the double play.
That's true. Hey, that's true.
So the first part is how many innings you can get, and the second part is how many runs are they going to give up. And you could use ERA or ERC. You could do better, I think, than ERA or ERC. I do, but you don't have to. It's only relatively small improvements. One thing to look at if you do want to do a little more work, see how many games played they have in the sim stats, not in the pitching totals, but in the batting totals, because they're different.
Wow.
And and
Chris's mind is blown.
Wow.
The average pitcher will have about 3/8 of the games played and the batting totals that they do in the pitching totals. Those other 5/8 of their games are in DH leagues. So if it's substantially different from 3/8, if you see somebody where they've got 3/4 of their games show up in batting totals, they've been facing a lot of extra pitchers. If they're in the offensive game, then the opposing pitcher is also in the offensive game.
That's the best damn thing I ever heard.
So they're getting a break. They're not facing.
He's like a genius. He always has these things that no one thinks about.
That is so good.
All three of our brains exploded at the same.
I know you 100%. You have spreadsheets with every pitcher in a game, and their estimated innings and whatever. You're using something better than ERA and ERC, all right, to determine how many runs.
I think so.
Right, and then you have it down to the run per dollar. Right, 100% you do, right?
Yeah, there are assumptions in there that I'm not 100% sure of, but that's what I try to do.
You're making assumptions and estimates, right?
Yes.
All right. So there's a couple of guys like Tyler, and this new guy, who came back. I forget what his name is,
Sladger.
Yeah, who's clearly these guys are just as dedicated, and these guys are hardcore. Yeah. And
Tyler asked me a whole lot of questions when he was starting out, both on the board and in messaging.
I just wanted to
I helped him along. He's going to pass.
I just wanted to send a message to the newer players and the more casual players. You don't have to do that.
No, you don't. It took me years to develop this. I always would think about the game a lot, but every 6 months I'd realize, oh, hey, how about this? And then I added it to my system. It took a long time to build.
So that tip is a great tip for tie breaking.
It is.
It's just a great tiebreaker.
I'm going to explain to you how I select pitchers, and it's going to sound stupid, but it works for me. Right?
I know what he's going to say.
Right. No, first off, by and large, I sort by salary history. All right. I look at his salary range. Say I want a right-handed starter around 8 million. So I look at the guys from 7 to 9 million and sort by various, they're on base against, they're slugging against, right? And I'll be able to look at if the guys are close, I'll be well, this guy's price has gone down 1.5 million. The other guy's price is the same. I'll take the guy who used to be 9 million and now it's 7.5 million.
I do the exact same thing he's talking about. I mean, almost exactly word for word. That's pretty much how I pick pitchers.
And I use other things for tiebreakers. And the God's honest truth is probably 80% of the time, I pick the best hitting pitchers. So I'm not in a DH league, obviously, right? I'm I just sort by the best hitting pitchers and I take the best ones that way. But everything else a tiebreaker. Durability is obviously a big one, and hold and stuff like that. And obviously, if you're on the vice boards, look, I'm not of the belief that the database is 100% pure and reliable. I just think it's impossible.
I'm not either. I really agree with pretty much everything Baud's saying today.
There's no question there's noise in it. Some players get used by owners who like to use them in Bakers and Cores. Others get used by owners who like to use them in county, like me. Yeah. So they're not all going to.
I swear to God, I promise you, if you're looking for an ace pitcher, like 10 to 13 million, all right? And if you go through all of them, you only have to look at their sim stats, but just if their price if it's an $11 million pitcher and his price just dropped $2 million, just take that guy. Because I promise you he'll be a good pitcher.
I'd pay less attention to what his price just did and instead compare it to what it was in average March 2019.
Years. Yep, that's what I do.
Sure, that's totally valid. But because these are all guys when you're talking Gaylord Perry and Mordecai Brown and Juan Marichal and Christy Mathewson. These are all like Hall of Fame pitchers with like 250 wins, 300 wins. Any guy in that description, like if they're like usually $12 million and now they're $10 million, they just had to be good values, and you really can't go wrong. Like they can still have bad seasons, obviously, but this is essentially what I do all the time.
I think that's more true now than it used to be. Yeah.
I have another tiebreaker.
There used to be some who were really seriously, consistently mispriced because owners just liked them, and so it kept their prices up. Or, and Satchel Paige is probably under. I don't know. I don't know what.
Satchel Paige was I think it was a big find on that little study I did.
Yeah. You were right about that.
He just. If for people who haven't seen, I just did this. I looked at a bunch of pictures and took like 15 seasons and looked at their owners and what their team's win-loss records were and their team ERA and how these pitchers can perform compared to all that. And the differences in team quality, owner quality, defense is just enormous. So Satchel Paige ended up outperforming everyone except for John Smoltz.
And if you go by the reset pricing, he's not quite that good. He's only the second best Negro Leagues pitcher, but he's close to the first. He's a lot better than his general reputation.
But I think for years the complaint has been that why isn't Satchel Paige any good? And apparently IS has. I mean, you said this, David, that they've always said that, no, he actually is much better than you think. And I think they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
These are all things that I would have never even think about, like the salary range and all that stuff. I've never even once thought about it.
Well, you don't play Classic, so
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in SSG.
Yeah. I mean, I do notice that guys' salaries, usually in the leagues that I play in, usually their salaries go up. Like Keith Hernandez was, when he was a rookie, obviously, next to nothing.
Well, that's a different deal. Yeah.
I know he actually started out like $3 million, but his first good year, he jumped all the way up to 12. So I'm like, oh.
Are you talking about different years?
He's got to get it. We got to get this guy in a Classic game.
I know. From your fan perspective, Keith Hernandez 79 and Keith Hernandez 80 is a different player.
Yeah,
is the same player, but as far just with a different salary. But from the game's perspective, it's a different player. It just has the same name.
Yeah. From 77, he was a monster, and this year he's just kind of okay. He still hits a lot of doubles, way less homers. His average is down a little bit. His on-base percentage is down a little bit. He's still a good player, but he's not the monster he was for me last season.
But essentially, the main point, I guess, is I'm not. Look, I bet David has way better handle on the valuation of pitchers than I do. All right, he just puts so much work into it.
The guy's a mathematical genius. It's crazy.
By and large, if you're looking at guys in the same general price range, and if one guy has a 3.5 ERA and the other guy has a 3.7 ERA, it matters, but maybe it doesn't. They could be just as good. I think the differences are the inherent biases are definitely that large.
Well, speaking of all these weird things we look at,
I got one more tiebreaker that I use for pitching.
Oh, yes.
I do the same thing when I select pitchers as these guys do. But when I go in Classic game, when I'm trying to narrow it down, I'll pull up the details page and sort it by parks and see where they've played the most at. If they've played way more at Coors and Baker, then I'm going to, look at their stats a little different than if they played all their games in the Astrodome. That's just another little tip.
All these ratings and all this stuff you guys are talking about, something that I actually do look at. What do you guys think about ERA plus? Is that a big factor in selecting pitchers for you guys?
It's the Baseball Reference thing. It's a whole different site, but yeah, I look at that a lot.
If somebody has more than 500 points, where a game started as a point and a game played as a point, then you're talking single season again. So you can look at the ERA plus. Okay.
Yeah, we look at the ERA plus when you're
right.
You don't just look at stats on the Diamond Mine website. You also have to go to Baseball Reference there too.
Yeah, ERA plus is reasonably good. Just remember that stats doesn't code based on runs. If a pitcher was lucky in that all his hits were spread out, or unlucky in that the hits were bunched together, that'll affect how many runs they gave up, but it doesn't affect how good they are in stats.
Well, they give clutch ratings in SSG a lot more often, actually. But so it matters somewhat, right?
Somewhat.
Probably,
but I think clutch doesn't apply to whether you give up extra runs in the third inning.
Sometimes it plays a factor in whether I sign a guy or not, because you can kind of see, like, when you click on that Baseball Reference thing, which I do a lot to kind of check and see, especially if you're going to sign a guy and spend some money on him, you want to try to look for longevity in the league that I'm in right now.
In a progression league. Yeah,
in a progression league, you're like, you want to sign guys that you could use for more than 1 year. You don't want to do the, burn and churn too much. But, I mean, there's still that great aspect of the game. But I'll look at a guy and I'm like, man, I'm thinking about this guy. Looks like he has a decent year as far as pitching goes. His ERA plus is only like 100 this year, but it's 230 next year. It might be worth the investment because he has a pretty good season the next year. Would that play a factor, David, whether you sign in a guy or not? Or
I don't know whether it makes sense to look at longevity. Maybe it does. I'm not that familiar with the economics of SSG in long term. But remember, next year he's going to cost you whatever he's worth. So there isn't so much of a bargain hunting aspect. There
actually is
you're looking for players that you can use in ways that make them worth more than they should be. And other than that, hey, it's fun to have a player like Keith Hernandez year after year. But if you got to pay full value for him and what he delivers is full value, that's you're treading water.
Well, you do have to look at longevity in these kind of leagues because you want to have a first baseman next year that's good. You don't want to be playing Toby Harris fair 47 at shortstop because that's where I'm at.
If the money's freed up, then you could sign somebody new, can't
There's
you?
You can't. No, there's never players left. You can't just go pick up a shortstop. You're just screwed.
That depends on league rules. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you really do need to look. It's a good way to look forward. Just look down the list of ERA plus or OPS plus and just give you a general idea how good your player is going to be in the future.
OPS plus better than ERA plus.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at Baseball Reference, I think I don't know, some people might disagree. I think I would go by FIP more than ERA plus. Like you look at the ERA plus and then compare the ERA to the FIP, right? And
what's FIP?
FIP is fielding independent pitching.
Yeah. I wouldn't go by FIP at all at IS.
I don't even know what that is.
If how many runs would you expect the ERA to be just based on their hit, walk, and home run rates, on their three true outcomes?
Well, IS codes based on the batter pitcher interactions, right?
But not just home runs, walks, and strikeouts. IS also includes hit rate. They assume that BABIP is not luck, not even a little bit, and so FIP throws out BABIP entirely. It says it's all luck. It's the other extreme from what IS does.
I mean, I just think that anything that gets closer to gets away from the runs allowed aspect and closer to the batter interactions is probably better, but it's complicated.
Yes. It would be nice if BBREF had ERC plus, because that's what you would really want.
Okay, yeah. I've been having these conversations with Tyler on this and other guy, Sladger, about the BABIP. Is that actually? I guess it is how you have to say it, right? The batting average on balls in play stuff. And trying to figure out how to if there's any use, if it has any utility in this game. And I'm not sure. It looks like a lot of work. I don't know. I'll just talk to Tyler and because he's a genius, and I'll just run my crazy ideas by him.
I mean, if you can enter in formulas into Excel at all, it's a very easy formula.
Yeah, but it's like a lot of manual work, right? Like, there's no easy way to get this off the site, right? You go, you select the batters faced, hits, walks. Like the six things that I mentioned in the post on the forum, and you do search, and then you say download this search, and that gives you a file you can open up in Excel, and then you just need to add one more column.
What?
All right, I'm done. So sure. I just like
this is why David is on the show. I mean,
it's actually pretty simple. I should have figured it out. Like that. I'm the idiot. That's fine.
My Lord, that's awesome.
Now I need a tip on how to use it on my phone. Like, I can't select and move the rows around on my phone. Like, I do almost all my.
You just need to download
on this phone.
You just need to download Microsoft Office on your phone.
It's just so much easier with a mouse, and you can right click and highlight, and it's just a lot easier to.
Well, guys, this was an awesome roundtable this week. That's a lot of really awesome stuff we covered in a short period of time. I think this is a good time to wrap it up. And we'll be back again next week. Maybe we'll have some new faces on the show. We got a few guys that we're thinking about bringing on. We'll have some new topics, of course. It'll be fresh into playoff time in the real game of baseball, so I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about there. So for the king, for DVD, and for Chris Baud, this is the champion of 77. And you have, of course, been watching Turnbuckle Bros.